Good evening, everybody. What is happening? Hopefully, you all are having a wonderful day today. So, I thought that I would talk a little bit, of course, about some NFL football because, of course, the first round of the playoffs is pretty much almost over. Of course, we have one more game within the first round of the playoffs, the wild card round, and I believe that that happens tonight on Monday night. And of course, that is between the LA Rams and the Arizona Cardinals. And I'm going to be very interested to see how that game goes on. I'm going to pick the LA Rams to possibly win that game. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Arizona Cardinals somehow pulled out of that game. And there is going to be a lot of pressure on both quarterbacks, but especially Matthew Stafford, because he's really in almost like a Charles Barkley situation when he finally joined the Phoenix Suns. He can no longer blame that all in all that he does not have the talent around him. He is going to have to perform. So we'll see. All know what happens. And speaking overall of a quarterback that oftentimes does not perform, let's talk about the Dallas Cowboys. Now, of course, for those of you that maybe Dallas Cowboys fans or all in all watched this game yesterday, I knew that this was going to be a very tight, very competitive game, and I knew that this was going to be a game that was going to go either way. To be honest with you, this was the only playoff game besides maybe the Cardinals and LA Rams that I found to be 50-50. This was a very big game for both teams, and especially the Dallas Cowboys, because the Dallas Cowboys, they finally made the playoffs once again, I believe for the first time in a couple of years. And on top of that, this was going to be a big referendum on someone of Mike McCarthy and Dak Prescott. But you know what? And a lot of people, of course, will blame Mike McCarthy, and he has to get some of the blame because the team overall looked like a mess yesterday, especially with some of the penalties that they got. But you know who I also mainly blame? Mr. Dak Prescott. And the reason why I blame Dak Prescott is because this dude, I remember first time seeing him several years ago, and I believe that he was the backup towards Tony Romo. And the first time I seen him play in the game, I thought that he looked fantastic. I thought that he looked very good. I thought that he was going to be the next very decent QB. I didn't necessarily think that, at least immediately that he was going to be on the Aaron Rodgers level or anything like that, or Tom Brady or, Drew Brees or something like that. But what I did think is that he could very potentially be a very decent QB, make about 5 Pro Bowls, and who knows, maybe even one day make an NFC championship or make a Super Bowl appearance. Ever since then, Dak Prescott has pretty much disappointed every single year. And basically, you know who Dak Prescott reminds me of? He's like the DeMar DeRozan overall of the NFL. Basically, to where, when you take a look at DeMar DeRozan sometimes during that regular season, if you don't really know what you're watching or if you don't have experience watching him, just like, he's doing very good with actually my team, the Chicago Bulls, right now. That's my favorite team in basketball, and a lot of the Chicago Bulls fans, they're looking at DeMar DeRozan right now and they're saying, oh man, they're going to make a super duper run in the playoffs. Well, they might be able to make it someone in the playoffs, but if you've had experience with DeMar DeRozan is not going to lead flies to shit. It just is what it is. Because all in all, you always know that in that big game situation, he's just always going to choke it away. There's just certain people, all in all, that, certain leopards, they just can never change their spots. Certain tigers can't change their stripes. It just is what it is. Certain people are born a certain way. Certain people overall have that clutch ability. Some people are able to exercise their demons. Some people are not able to. And some people also, have high intelligence for their sport. Some people don't. And to be quite honest with you, I think Dak Prescott, there's certain times where he does not have very high football IQ and he just makes some boneheaded plays all in all when the pressure is on him. So that's why I mainly blame Dak Prescott for this loss. Don't get me wrong, it can't all be on him. But the common denominator here that I've seen with the Dallas Cowboys usually losing in the playoffs, it usually consists of Dak Prescott, in my opinion, underperforming each and every single time. I remember just like it was yesterday, that one playoff game that the Dallas Cowboys had against Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. And I favored the Dallas Cowboys in that game. That was the first year I believe that Dak Prescott made the playoffs. It looked like they were going to make a very great run. They were 13-3. They actually looked like the most talented team within the whole entire NFC. But Aaron Rodgers was able to win that game because Dak Prescott had a multitude of mistakes when it came down to it. And of course, the defense could have performed a little bit better, in my opinion, as well. But like I said, Dak Prescott, like I said, he's like the DeMar DeRozan. He's pretty much on that same level as Kirk Cousins and Matthew Stafford. He may be able to lead you to the playoffs here and there, but he's not going to be a person overall that makes a deep run. He's never going to lead you to an NFC championship. He's never going to lead you to a Super Bowl appearance. He's just not that guy. Because at the end of the day, Dak Prescott, he can't handle the pressure. And a lot of the times, he cannot make the most intelligent plays when he needs to. And that's what really separates, certain people. That's why when I talk to certain friends and they say, oh, well, like for example, we were actually having a conversation about this yesterday. A close friend of mine, He personally thinks that Peyton Manning and Joe Montana are on the same level. He probably would even put Peyton Manning above Joe Montana. I personally can't do that. The reason why that is because Peyton Manning, even for how great he was, there's just a certain thing that Peyton Manning did not have that Joe Montana had. Now, both of them were extremely talented. Of course, Peyton Manning, he has more records than what a Joe Montana has, but there's a certain amount of players or people all know that hold more records than other people. Russell Westbrook, for example, if you want to take a look at NBA basketball, he holds more records overall than what a Stephen Curry does. But does that mean that he's greater than a Stephen Curry? Not even close. It just is what it is. Karl Malone, he actually has more records than Michael Jordan, at least in certain categories. He has more points, more rebounds. Does that mean that he's greater than Michael Jordan? No, I wouldn't say that. It just is what it is. CP3, he may have certain records over John Stockton when I put him over John Stockton. No, my point being is this. You have to take a look also, not only were they statistically consistent, but how big they performed in the big playoff games or the big moments. And one of my friends yesterday, he said, oh, well, just one game, one Super Bowl doesn't define, a whole entire career. Well, it does when it's the biggest game of your career. Then what the hell are the playoffs? What the hell are Super Bowls for? If you're a person that is known for repeatedly underperforming in the big game situations, you know what that says about you? That says all in all that you can't handle the pressure. That says all in all that you're not on the elite level. Of course, we have to take a look at the biggest games of people's careers because at the end of the day, we can come up with that excuse all we want to about, oh, well, it's a team game and this and this and this. Yes, and you're the leader of that team. If you're a Dak Prescott, if you're a quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, you're supposed to lead them over the hump. And every time that I see this dude, play, he can never lead a team over the hump. And don't tell me overall that it's about talent when it comes down to, because the Dallas Cowboys, when you take a look at their roster, at least, especially in the NFC, they're one of the top 3 most talented rosters inside the whole entire NFC. So the talent was not the problem here. The talent, in my opinion, the problem is that not only could Dak Prescott not perform, but it was a very messy game. I would have to blame Mike McCarthy a little bit, but you know what? A lot of people always like to blame Mike McCarthy, especially, certain people, all in all, like Green Bay Packers fans especially, because they always want to say, oh, well, Mike McCarthy was the reason why they didn't do that, that good in the final couple of seasons. Mike McCarthy obviously has some sort of prestige. He was able to somewhat revive Brett Favre's career in those final couple of seasons. On top of that, Aaron Rodgers has never won a Super Bowl without him. Now, is that me saying that Aaron Rodgers is not a great quarterback without him? No, that's not what I'm saying at all. But you know what? For a lot of people who love to talk shit on Mike McCarthy, especially the Aaron Rodgers fanboys, that's why Shannon Sharp, he talks so much shit about him. To be quite honest with you, Mike McCarthy, he has a lot of shit talked on him for someone all in all that was able to win a Super Bowl with an Aaron Rodgers that, although he did very good that season, he was very inexperienced. And someone all in all, who kind of underperformed actually in some of those playoff games before he won that Super Bowl all the way back in that 2011 year. Mike McCarthy sure gets a lot of shit for that. Aaron Rodgers was able to win 2 of his MVPs out of his 4, because I assume that the 4th MVP is going to come this year. He was able to win 2 of his, 4 MVPs with Mike McCarthy. So obviously Mike McCarthy isn't that bad as what many people are saying. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that, he's the number 1 coach that I would pick. But I think a little bit too many people are blaming Mike McCarthy here. Don't get me wrong. There are certain things where I certainly think that, it could have been better. But in my opinion, who's the main person that I blame here? I blame Dak Prescott. But it just is what it is. Anyways, let's get into the video. Let's see what Mr. Skip and Shannon have to say. And let's get into it.
Back on Sunday.
Let's do it.
Let's go,
We're going to have
Kenny.
to see about that. What did you call it, Shannon? 2.5 hours of punishment? That starts now, because Dak Prescott and the Cowboys were sent home by Jimmy Garoppolo and the 49ers after a 23-17 loss. And it was a shocking loss, and it came with an even more shocking ending as Dallas couldn't clock the ball in time following a QB draw with 14 seconds left in the middle of the field. So take a listen to what Mike McCarthy and Dak had to say about it after the game.
I've never seen that come down, the way it came down, as far as the collision between the umpire and the quarterback.
A lot of people, of course, are blaming all along. And I had a friend of mine text me who was a Baltimore Ravens fan. And he said, imagine losing a game. And we were both cheering for the Cowboys yesterday because one of our friends is a Dallas Cowboys fan. And I always root for the Cowboys. A lot of people, of course, give them a lot of shit. And I'm always a person that tends to root for certain things or certain people where, people give them a lot of shit for no reason, in my opinion. I get it to a certain degree, but whatever. But I was really hoping that they'd pull out that playoff game yesterday, but they just weren't able to. Because the Dallas Cowboys, when it comes down to it, if they face a team that knows what to do in big game situations, and on top of that can somewhat compete with them in terms of talent, they're not going to win. It just is what it is. They're pretty much like the OKC Thunder of the NFL.
We were trying to get inside the 30-yard line to set up the last play. The mechanics were intact. That felt from our end of it.
But like I said, a lot of people, they want to blame that referee. It was not the referee's fault. It actually was Dak Prescott's fault. Because you're supposed to let the referee overall touch the ball, and then all in all, the game continues. So like I said, another boneheaded ass play in my opinion by Dak Prescott. Now, I somewhat get it. It's great that you ran down the field, but come on, dude. You have 14 seconds left. That means all in all that the 2 seconds overall that you decided not to throw the ball, that's 2 seconds off the clock. By the time that you run down the field, that's 5 or 6 less seconds. And that's guessing that the referee is going to get there in time. So there would have been about maybe, 4 seconds at most on the clock when it came down to it. That would have gave you time maybe to do 2 plays. I just don't think all in all that was the smartest decision. In my opinion, they should have continued to try to pass the ball up the field and get the ball out of bounds.
The communication that I was given on the sideline, that they were reviewing it, they were going to put time back on the clock, and the next thing I know that they're running off the field.
The fans felt the same way as us, and that's what they're doing it for. Then, I guess that's why guess that's why the refs took off and got out of there so fast.
Don't blame the referees for that, Dak. It was your dumbass fault. The reason why the Dallas Cowboys lost that game yesterday. Like I said, this dude is such a bonehead in so many big game plays. It just is what it is. This dude is, like I said, he's pretty much on the same level as Kirk Cousins and Matthew Stafford, and he showed me that yesterday. This was going to be a big referendum on Dak Prescott yesterday, and you know what? He's just never going to be on that higher level. Like I said, he's the DeMar DeRozan, the Kirk Cousins, or the Matthew Stafford. That's what he is, all right? The person that, he can trick you into thinking that he's a very elite player when you look at him overall in the regular season, but as soon as those playoffs hit, he's always going to underperform.
Yeah, I think everybody's upset with the way that this thing played out.
We could spend the whole show just on the way it ended. But Shannon, what is the biggest reason in your opinion?
Shannon overall looked like a kid overall chasing the ice cream truck with that smile on his face. He's going to tear Skip Bayless to shreds.
The Cowboys lost this one.
Guess who's not upset with the way things played out? The guy that predicted it all year long, Skip Bayless. This is who your Cowboys are. I kept telling you, everybody, there are people that talk about football for a living now that played for this team. Oh, this is different. We have so many players. Even Skip Bayless said, this feels different. I said, Skip, you're setting yourself up for a greater disappointment. And the greater the expectation.
Well, when you're a fan, all in all, that tends to happen, but whatever. Listen, at the end of the day, I was really hoping that the Dallas Cowboys, at least this year, were going to make the NFC Championship. I made a video, now more than several weeks ago, but, I made it in the beginning earlier of the year, and I talked about the Dallas Cowboys, and I said, you know what, their expectations, at least this year, should be to make the NFC Championship, and they couldn't even make it out of the first round. So it's just very obvious that, this team that, as long as that quarterback is underway, in my opinion, they're not going to make it out of the first round. And there's been a multitude of coaches there when it comes down to it. There's been a multitude overall of coaching changes. Like I said, there's only one common denominator that I see. That's Dak Prescott.
The greater disappointment. Now, I told you on Friday, I said, you're going to come in here on Monday and you're going to be crying. Just like 90% of the Cowboys fans were crying in the stands. Did you see?
Skip Bayless overall looks like he wants to strangle Shannon Sharp right now. He looks like he wants to kill himself.
How when CBS panned the stands, people were literally crying because you fooled them. You told them they were going to the Super Bowl. Everybody said they're going. Yes, your fault. Because you hype them up. Hold up. Did you say they were going to win 2 games?
Get it out of your system.
Did you say they were going to win some games? This is what.
And let me also warn those Chicago Bulls fans out there. And I like the Chicago Bulls as well. They're my team as well. For those of you that believe that DeMar DeRozan is going to lead you past to the championship, you're sorely mistaken. Because DeMar DeRozan is very similar to that of a Dak Prescott or Kirk Cousins or Matthew Stafford. He is not going to perform up to par when he needs to. At least I don't believe so. But of course, you know what? The main player actually who's the leader of that team anyway is Mr. Zach LaVine. And he at least somewhat seems like he has some confidence. So we'll see all in all what happens with that. So who knows? Maybe they could make a run at least to the Eastern Conference Finals. They are very talented. But if DeMar DeRozan is your alleged leader, he can't lead flies to shit.
I predicted they were going to go 12-5. What did you say? I said 12-5. Where did they go? 12-5. Thank you. Next question.
I predicted they would be one and done. What did they do? Your quarterback is a roller coaster. He is not a merry-go-round. Merry-go-round goes up, down, up, down. Your guy goes up all over the place. I told you this. You're going to blame it on penalties. Cowboy fans will put it on penalties.
I
but
haven't
your
spoken
team
yet.
was the... Hold on.
I haven't spoken yet, Shannon. Well, listen, I'll say all in all that penalties, they certainly are a part of it. They cost themselves a lot of plays yesterday. That defense was very, very sloppy yesterday.
Your team
So part of the blame does have to be on Mike McCarthy.
was the most penalized team in all of football. Penalties per game. They finished 1 yard behind the Oakland Raiders, or they would have led in both categories. Again, going into the fourth quarter, Skip, your offense, number 32 points a game, 407 yards per game, had 7 points. A little over 175 yards. That's what you had. So I don't want to hear anything. What good is all those points that you scored in the regular season? All those yards that you had in the regular season, when you absolutely needed it, you couldn't get a touchdown. You couldn't get a yard. Mike McCarthy says he's never seen a collision. I've never seen a boneheaded, and I told you early in the year, Skip, the second game of the season, I said, Skip, he's going to cost y'all a game. I said, it's going to hurt even more because it's going to hurt when...
I was talking to a very close friend of mine, and he's a Green Bay Packers fan. And I was actually telling him, I said, you should actually cheer for the Dallas Cowboys in this game because the 49ers may actually potentially be a bigger threat. And he said, nah, I don't believe that because the Dallas Cowboys, they have like the number one offense or whatever ranked offense they had. And I don't want them facing up against that defense. Well, the Green Bay Packers defense actually is not bad. I believe that it's a top 10 defense this season, so they can somewhat handle themselves. But the reason why, in my opinion, that the 49ers would be a bigger threat is because they're just more experienced in the playoffs. Now, I understand that Jimmy Garoppolo, that, he can, kind of mess up in some of the bigger game situations. But Dak Prescott, he may even mess up more than what Jimmy Garoppolo does. When you take a look at it on the surface, Jimmy doesn't seem to be as talented or as good as what a Dak Prescott is. But when you take a look at them both in the playoffs, Jimmy G is probably actually better overall than what Dak Prescott is. At least Jimmy G, what I'll say about him is that, he didn't fuck up to the point to where, they didn't make that Super Bowl that 1 year. When overall they were at least expected to make the Super Bowl, they made it. That's at least overall, the credit that I'll give them. Dak Prescott can't even make it to the second round usually. It just is what it is. I mean, he's won, one playoff game? And that was against the Seahawks, team. And to be quite honest with you, against the quarterback in Russell Wilson, who also has a very big problem in big game situations sometimes. But he's not going to get as much criticism because he's already won his ring and been to multiple Super Bowls. So we'll see overall what happens. But sometimes a team all in all that is less talented but more experienced in the playoffs and that has more confidence, sometimes that's a bigger threat to your team than what a team overall who's decently more talented but overall does not know how to get over the hump is. And that's why, in my opinion, this next 49ers game, I believe that Green Bay is going to have to play in. They got to watch out. I do predict the Green Bay Packers to beat the 49ers, of course. But the 49ers, in my opinion, they're actually the bigger threat than what the Dallas Cowboys would be. Because like I said, that offense is all great, but Shannon Sharp, he just described it perfectly. What do all those numbers, what does all those stats mean if you can't do it in the playoffs? Like I said, it's like the Russell Westbrook or DeMar DeRozan, of the NFL. He gets all those triple doubles, or you take a look at his stats and you say, wow, this person's averaging a great amount of stats. But as soon as the postseason comes, those numbers are going to drop and drop overall majorly.
I said he was overrated from the start. Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers made that guy, and Jerry Jones deserved to have him. And I told Jerry.
Well, you know what? Let me give Mike McCarthy some credit here because he just led the Dallas Cowboys to the playoffs, all in all, I believe, in a team that has not made the playoffs within the past 2 years. But, of course, Shannon Sharp is a major Aaron Rodgers fan, so he has to allege, just like he does with LeBron James, that, oh, LeBron is so great because, he's never had an elite coach to coach him. All that bullshit. It's the same thing with Aaron Rodgers. Let me ask you something. Don't get me wrong. Aaron Rodgers still seems to be a great talent even without Mike McCarthy. But let me ask you something. Does he seem any greater without Mike McCarthy? In terms of peak level? With the best version of Aaron Rodgers, you can debate that he's pretty much the same with Mike McCarthy or without him. Now, of course, the team has done better within the past couple of seasons. But when it comes down to it, like I said, that could just be because Mike McCarthy ran out of time there when it comes down to it, and he just was not a good fit with them. And on top of that, Aaron Rodgers very clearly wanted him out of there. But when it comes down to it, like I said, has Aaron Rodgers, have they really won Super Bowls without Mike McCarthy? It is what it is.
Oh, he should be committed.
Now, that's not me saying, once again, that they should have not fired Mike McCarthy because, of course, within the last couple of seasons there, he was not successful. But like I said, obviously Mike McCarthy has some sort of prestige as a head coach because not only did he do somewhat great with the Green Bay Packers for a decently, long time, but on top of that, he just led this Dallas Cowboys squad that did not make the playoffs within the past 2 years. So obviously, he knows somewhat what he's doing.
For the work he's done. I wonder if you feel like that this morning. The Cowboys are exactly who I thought they were. Some underperforming bums. They're bums, Skip Bayless, and you know it. And this
they're bums. Damn.
Hurt. I know this would hurt you more than anything because at no point in time since you and I've been doing this show have you felt more confident in your stinking, lousy, no good for nothing Cowboys. And you're going home after what you thought were a promising season. The Cowboys are who we thought they were. And Jimmy G and the 49ers didn't let him off the hook. Now, what about that QBR? I'm going to turn it over to you because I want to hear it in your voice, how it grovels, how you feel, how it's filled with pain, because I know you're hurting. I know you couldn't sleep last night, and I slept like a baby. As a matter of fact, I haven't slept like this in probably a year and a half. I was at such a peace.
These guys overall like that old couple that always be arguing all the time, and they just gain happiness off of each other's pain. Or they just like to get in little arguments and like to throw little jabs at each other.
I was just like, Lord, please let me open my eyes tomorrow and give it to Skip Bayless because he deserves everything that I'm giving him today.
Yeah, you slept like a baby, and now you're making points like a baby. Nah, I got you. Little crazy. Way to go, Shannon. I'm impressed with your breakdown. You're in the Hall of Fame. I'm not. I can't disagree with any word you just uttered. And by the way, anybody who followed me or somehow came across me last night on Twitter knows I annihilated my team last night on Twitter. I was scathing, and every word that I typed drove it deeper and deeper home that I got Mike McCarthy yesterday in this football game. I knew it all year. I kept telling you we have to win in spite of him. My team yesterday, two things operated. It looked like it was poorly coached and poorly motivated. See Mike McCarthy as in drop the mic and get him out of my sight. And my $75 million a year quarterback, as he often has during this past regular season, looked like he deserved about $7.50 an hour. And yes, his QBR was 27 after he had averaged a 77 QBR in his previous 3 playoff games, which I thought was extraordinary. And I banked on that. And when I tried to take his $75 million to my playoff bank yesterday, the check bounced. And he bounced me right out of the playoffs, and you say they had to go home. They were at home. They lost a home playoff game to a 49ers team that they are better than. And by the way,
I agree they were better than the 49ers, but in terms of talent they were. But in terms of game planning and in terms of overall even coaching, and also in terms of even having a quarterback that could perform big in the big game situations, they were not better in those categories.
I tweeted this late in the first half, and I'm just going to read it again just to drive home all your points. Why does this team always do this to me in big games? Come out deadheaded and fall hopelessly behind. It happens every single big game. They look overwhelmed. They look overmatched. And for now, this is late in the first half, they look overrated. Just makes me want to puke. This is about to be over, and it should have been over at 23-7 down as they entered the fourth quarter. But what does Rain Dakota Prescott always do, Shannon Sharp? He stinks it up for 3 quarters, and then all of a sudden, he goes warrior. It's always too little too late, but all of a sudden, he snaps out of it and snaps into it, and in the fourth quarter, he was really good. My defense was really good in the fourth quarter because in the second half, we outscored the 49ers 10-7, which is what we should have done in the first half, but we were not ready to play. And the 49ers, as you know, we won the toss and we deferred because we got a big, bad defense. No, you don't. Just take the football and cram it right down their throats.
Yeah, look at Skip. Oh, shit.
Stick it in the end zone because they've got a running game you cannot.
That's the most pissed off I think I've ever seen Skip Bayless on live hair.
So take the ball and do what you do best, which is move and score the football. You go ahead 7-0, and maybe you would have the advantage for the entire game. And instead, you're playing out of a hole, as we always have to play out of a hole. But here we came in the fourth quarter. We buckled down on defense, and we started to click on offense. Would you believe Dak Prescott threw for 111 yards in the fourth quarter alone? He had 143 for the first 3 quarters, and right on schedule, he had 111. Glory be, put him in the Hall of Fame. The fourth quarter Hall of Fame, the Losers Hall of Fame. Okay, so Shannon Sharp, we had no business being back in this game, but there was a fake punt, obviously. No. And then this happened, and that happened, and this happened, and that happened. I'll get to all that in just a minute. But when I least expected it, when I'll be the first to admit I had completely given up on this game, I look up, and they actually have a chance. And it comes down to one play, and it is now time for me to talk about Ramon George.
Anyways, that seems to really be it about this video. But anyways, we'll see overall where the Dallas Cowboys go from here. If I had to guess all in all, I don't really know. But in my opinion, Dak Prescott has pretty much reached his limits. And in my opinion, he's going to be on the hot seat. So we'll see what happens. But anyways, that's everybody for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to y'all later.